You know, it's an amazingly vast topic, the topic of Hinduism, and just like the rabbi did so eloquently, I will try to give you a brief summary of what is Hinduism, and then what do we learn about ourselves and about spirituality from the Hindu Festival of Lights, Diwali. So the word Hindu or Hinduism is not actually found in any Hindu scripture. So that's a name that was given over in the last few hundred years, you can say. It's something that developed. Just like calling the Native Americans Indians, just kind of, someone gave them that name and it stuck. It's something like that. I don't want to get into the long story. The original name of Hinduism is Sanatan Dharma. So Sanatan actually means eternal. No beginning, no end. Just like God is eternal, and we are eternal, souls are eternal, so the path to God must also be eternal. Otherwise, if it began at some point, well, there were souls and there was God, but there was no way to get to God, that doesn't make sense. So the path to God also has to be eternal. And dharma can also be defined in many ways depending who you're talking to, but the simplest way to understand it is that's how you get to God, through dharma. So how does a soul reach God? By following dharma. So, and what kind of dharma? The eternal, the Sanatan Dharma. So Sanatan Dharma, or Hinduism, is very inclusive. It's actually considered to be the universal path to God for all the souls. Anyone can adopt it, anyone can follow it. It's simply, the Sanatan Dharma are eternal principles that describe and teach you who you are, who God is, what your relationship to God is, and how you can consummate that relationship, how you can actually meet God and be with God forever. The teachings of Hinduism are actually divided into two main sections. We call Aparadharma and Paradharma. Aparadharma is all the rules and regulations, like the rabbi was describing, how to live in the world, how to be a good person, what kind of rules govern how we interact with each other, what are our duties towards our family, towards our country. All of these things are described in great detail in scriptures like our Vedas, in our Smritis, in Mahabharata. These are all Hindu scriptures. So this is part of life, but it's not everything. Because even if everybody followed all the rules, everybody was a good person, there was peace on earth, and everybody had enough to eat and a roof over their head and good education and medicine, even if you gave everything like that to every single person on this earth planet, there's still something missing. It's our relationship with God. We want to feel not just close to God, we want to experience God, we want to be with Him. So how to make that happen, that's called paradharma. So one part of the dharma is how to be a good person, and the other part is how to meet God. There's a path described. Hinduism also is monotheistic. Hinduism believes that God is one, and in fact, all the people on the whole earth planet, no matter what religion they belong to, if someone is worshiping God, no matter what they call God, no matter what ritual they use to worship Him, they're all worshiping the same God, because there can't be more than one God. It's scientifically impossible. It's irrational. God is absolute. So if there's an absolute power, there cannot be two absolute powers. Because if there were two, one would limit the other. So there's one absolute supreme power. That absolute supreme power, in English we call God. In Sanskrit we call Bhagwan or Brahm or Paramatma. These are general terms. We also have personal names for God in Hinduism. Krishna, Ram, Vishnu, Shiva, Durga. There are many, many more. But God is only one. And in Hinduism, we also have a personal way to relate to God, because we believe that God is unlimited. So it means God is everywhere, all the time. He's always with us. God can be formless, and God can also have a personal form, because God is unlimited. If we say God cannot have a personal form, we're limiting God. We're saying, that doesn't make sense to my intellect, so God, I don't allow you to have a personal form. My intellect cannot reach God with my limited material intellect. I cannot describe God or understand God, but we know this much, that God is unlimited in every way, and God has unlimited powers, and therefore God can be formless and is eternally formless and simultaneously has a form. So those forms are also described in Hinduism, but don't let that lead you to believe that Hindus believe in more than one God. We worship one God who is unlimited in his powers and forms, or her powers and forms. So the festival of Diwali is one of many, many festivals throughout the year on the Hindu calendar, which is also lunar. This year, Diwali was, or 2010, Diwali was on November 5th, but it's actually the new moon. Whatever day the new moon falls on, that's Diwali. So in Diwali, which is also the festival of lights, the origin of Diwali is a divine event. In Sanskrit, a divine event is called a Leela. A divine event which takes place on the earth planet is called a Leela. So there was a Leela involving Ram, Bhagwan Ram, Sita Ram, returning to his city of Ayodhya, which is still there now. This happened a long, long time ago in India. Ayodhya is still there in North India. Ram was away from Ayodhya for 14 years, and as he was returning, because he was the beloved king of Ayodhya, all of the people anticipating his return cleaned the whole city, top to bottom, every corner, and decorated the whole city with lights to welcome their beloved Ram home. So that was the beginning of how lights got associated with Diwali. The whole city was decorated with what we call diyas, the little clay or earthen container holding some ghee with a wick and burning. So everywhere on the rooftops, on the windowsills, on the door sills, on the boundary walls, everything was covered in diyas to welcome Ram home. So nowadays also we remember that day, that important day of Bhagwan Ram returning home, and we also decorate our homes to welcome God into our home. And on a personal level, the light of Diwali, similar to what the rabbi was describing in the end, the light of Diwali represents knowledge and goodness. Our Sanskrit scriptures teach that we are not only the physical body, we also have a mind, not the brain. The brain is part of your body. The mind is a subtle thing which functions through your brain, you can say. Just like you have a sense of sight that functions through your physical eyeballs, you have a subtle mind that functions using the organ of your brain. So you have a physical body, you have a mind, and you have your divine soul. So the soul is divine, just like God. And the body and the mind are actually material and limited. But you are made up of all three. So the soul is perfect, eternally perfect. But the mind is not perfect. The mind, like all other things in this world, is a combination of good and bad. The energy that makes up this world in Sanskrit is called Maya. And Maya is inherently a combination of the positive and negative. So nowhere in the world can you find only good, and nowhere in the world can you find only bad. In fact, Hinduism teaches that there is no absolute good in the world. Although God is absolute, the world itself has no absolute goodness or absolute badness. There's no absolute evil or absolute good. There are different gradients of the two, like 99% good and 1% bad, 50-50, 99% bad, 1% good. So in our mind, we also have this gradient. There are no good or bad souls, but in our mind, because the potential for good and bad is inherent in the human mind. God didn't make us good or bad. Just the energy itself of our mind is inherently a combination of good and bad. So, which one do we develop? Which one do we cultivate? And cultivating or fostering goodness or badness is very easy. Depends on our thinking. Good thoughts create good sanskars, good impressions in our mind that cultivates the goodness, the good quality, sattva, we say. And wrong thinking does the exact opposite. So how does a good person become bad? Through wrong thinking, through wrong speaking, through wrong actions, but it all starts with thinking. How does a bad person become good? Through good thinking, good speaking, good actions. So nothing is set in stone. A bad person does not have to remain bad, and a good person doesn't necessarily remain good. Our mind is always changing. In fact, every moment we're thinking something. Nahi kaschit charnamapi jatu tishthatya karmakrit. Half a shlok from one of our most famous scriptures, the Gita, the Bhagavad Gita, in which Bhagavan Shri Krishna says, the human mind does not remain still or inactive even for a fraction of a second. And everything we think is either good or bad, or you can say neutral. Good means, how can I help this person? What good can I do? Bad means, I'd like to see this person suffer. Sometimes we get happiness from seeing our enemy suffer. That's a bad kind of thought. In between would be, you know what, I just want to enjoy this for myself. I'm not looking to harm anyone, I'm not looking to help anyone, I just want to enjoy it for me. That's in between. So those bad and good thoughts or actions, they leave bad or good sanskars or impressions on the mind, which either is cultivating the good quality of the mind or the bad quality. So on Diwali, we actually think about that these lights represent the good quality. Darkness represents the bad quality, and the light represents the good quality, and that we're meant to be developing that good quality. And on another twist on the symbology, the soul is a spark of light, and God is like the sun. Both are eternal. God is eternal, but He gives life to all the individual souls. So we have an eternal relationship with Him. Even though we have temporary physical relationships with each other, like you and all of us and me, we met today. Some of us had never met before, and some of us may never meet again. So we came together for a short time. Some of us, like my physical mother and father in this life, we're together for our whole life. That's a lifelong relationship. But from the perspective of eternity and the eternity of the soul, it's a temporary relationship. Our only eternal relationship is with God. God is always within every soul, giving life to that soul, gracing that soul. So Diwali is also about remembering that God is our eternal divine mother, divine father, divine friend, who's always with us, and that God is absolute good, who's beyond the relative good and bad of this world, and that any soul can reach God simply through faithfully surrendering to God. A feeling of loving surrender in the heart that becomes absolute surrender results in receiving God's ultimate grace, which means you get to meet God face to face. This, in a nutshell, is the meaning of Diwali and my best effort at summarizing the philosophy of Hinduism. Thank you. Namaste.